Well, to help us look back at 2017, we're joined by CGTN's current affairs commentator, Einar Tangen. Einar, 2017 was an important year politically, was an important year economically for China, but also there are human stories like the piece we just saw, the tragic episode, this fire in the outskirts of Beijing with these migrant workers. What is China doing to help them? What is it doing to take care of them, especially when it comes to affordable housing?
Well, this is a very, very difficult position for the Chinese government because, when they came out of the work conference, they said, look, we're going to put poverty, pollution, and systemic risk out there, and these are things that we're going to solve. Now, the urban poor, the people who've been building these cities, have been somewhat marginalized, but you also have the plain reality that you cannot grow cities beyond their capacity. Once you start doing that, the living standards erode. The whole point of the city disappears. No one wants to be there anymore, and all of a sudden, all that work is and economic investment has been displaced. So this is a real problem. Many of these migrants will go to other cities. Some will go back to their probably rural roots, but they have to be, some sort of measures has to be made for them. This cannot be a society that moves ahead at the expense of others. But this is one of the major issues that separates in this year the direction between the U.S., where you've seen more going to those who have more, versus China, which has been saying, look, we're going to go forward together.
Let me move on to China and the United States, arguably the most important watched bilateral relationship in the world. You had the Trump-Xi summit in Mar-a-Lago in April. Then you had Trump's visit to China in November. We've seen sharp attacks, tweets against China by the U.S. president. And then there was this bromance that happened. Where do things stand now? So much seems to be at stake, Einar, considering these two countries are the world's two biggest economies.
The U.S. is disengaging in terms of its international situation, and it's pursuing this America first. At the same time, China is engaging even more, and it's saying that it wants to continue the policies that led to its own growth, this multilateralism. So you have two forces which are seemingly going in very, very different directions. They have different ideas about what the people in their country need, what governments should be doing, and even in style. I mean, Donald Trump sends out tweets, a few characters long, detailing. He sent out thousands this year. Xi Jinping, he did 205-minute long speech detailing everything he planned to do and how he wants to move his society forward. In terms of the future, unfortunately, I think this will continue. I think Donald Trump's latest salvo, where he's blaming China for the ship-to-ship transfers, is merely a prelude to announcing stiffer sanctions and perhaps a small trade war with China in the new year.
Let's move on to the 19th Party Congress in October, the biggest, most watched event in China's political calendar. What, in your opinion, was the biggest achievement that happened at this Party Congress?
I think it was the work report. I think too often people look at the optics and they were looking at who was going to be on stage, but it doesn't matter whether you had 20 people on stage or 2. The issue is, what is the government going to do? How does it hold itself responsible? You were saying earlier on, China has set very broad, ambitious goals for poverty reduction, urbanization, all by 2020. 2018 is around the corner. It's very unusual for governments to say, look, this is what we're going to accomplish, this is how we're going to accomplish it. And I think this is really the long suit of China when it comes to the rest of the world. The China model is quite different from anything else, but it's been very effective, and it sets very, very realistic goals, which it has consistently achieved.
Speaking of realistic goals, how realistic is this ambitious Belt and Road project? A big forum was held earlier this year. Really, the goal is to create the ancient Silk Road, spanning some 68 countries and up to 40% of the global GDP. What do you make of that, Einar?
Well, I mean, this is WTO 2.0. What they're doing is, instead of drawing up agreements between countries that large companies can take advantage of, what China is doing is providing the physical connectivity that's going. And it's gone beyond what we would normally call the traditional Silk Road. You have Brazil, Argentina, Chile, other parts, Australia. These were never part of that road. Now they are joining in. It's truly become an international effort. On the downside, China cannot do this alone. It's going to take partners, and both for investment, resources, and cooperation to do this. But I think for China, this is the only way forward, not only for trade, but for regional and global prosperity, which they believe will dampen the threats in terms of terrorism and separatism.
Einar Tangen, thank you so much, sir.